Sometimes we don't know where the road of life is going to lead us. For me, it led me to Launch Code, a place where purpose and passion collides, a place where you have an opportunity. Launch Code helped me launch a new career. It gave me that opportunity. So I want to give back. I want to be able to help a new generation of learners become developers by sharing all of my life lessons and all of my struggles and what it took for me to get to where I needed to be today. Launch Code helped me do that. Now let's go on this journey together. I'll see you there. Okay, so now we're in chapter 16, and we're going to talk more on types. Now, again, we've laid the foundation. We are adding more and more to this house that we are building. We're now starting to move into the process of hanging our drywall and getting electrical work done. So we're just reinforcing some things right now as well, so that as we go deeper and deeper into the next phase, which that's when we hop into the class phase, which would be in next week's class, we're going to learn how to really bring all of this stuff together. This is bringing it together. So if you're new to the channel and you like to follow along with the curriculum, the link is in the description. It's free. You don't have to register. Let's get into it. Chapter 16, more on types. The learning objectives. Upon completing all the content in this chapter, you should be able to do the following. Describe the meaning of special primitive types, undefined and null, and provide examples of situations in which they may be used. When will we actually use these special primitive data types? We will use them on purpose in certain situations, is what we're saying. Understand the difference between primitive and object types, including what it means for primitive types to be immutable. List the 5 primitive types in JavaScript: string, number, boolean, null, and undefined. Now, we know that there's more than 5. There's 7 because it doesn't have the symbols in here and it doesn't have big N. I've already introduced this information to you early on to prepare you for now your mind receiving this information. Here are our key terminologies. We got primitive and undefined and null. So let's go ahead and get into the reading. Primitive data types. In JavaScript, data types can fall into one or two categories: primitive or object types. So remember now, we're really laying a foundation here. Primitive and object type, 2 categories. A primitive data type specifies the size and type of variable values, and it has no additional methods. Using primitive data types, we can build more complex data structures or objects data types. Listen to what this just said. It has no additional methods. Primitive data types don't have methods. So the primitive string doesn't have a method like the object string. So that's why you want to understand the difference. The primitive number doesn't have a method. And the Boolean, it's different from the object Boolean or the function Boolean. So this is now, we're really kind of bringing those little small details into play right now, or into focus. Now, while object types such as objects and arrays are mutable, primitive data types are immutable. Immutable data types are data types that cannot be changed once the value has been created. That's why these are the primitive data types. So this has to be updated, I can see, because it only has 5 and it needs to have 7 because they updated them. So here, we notice here these primitive data types. These are capital S's, string numbers, and booleans. This could be confusing with the function, because really this should be lowercase st, and I understand why, because maybe when it was typed out, it just capitalized the letters, but it should be lowercase here, so it don't get you confused with the function strings, number, and boolean, because those letters are capitalized. So I just want to point that out. Don't remember the rule and remember the context of what things are being said, because sometimes it may not look right, but make sure you understand the context in which it's being used. But we know that these are the primitive string, number, and boolean, but it's using capital letters. So just pay attention to that. So here we want to talk about the undefined. Undefined is a primitive data type in JavaScript that is assigned to declared variables which have not been initialized. Here we go. Remember, when we just declare a variable that has not been initialized, whatever you try to run it, it's going to say undefined because there is no value. It was never defined. So put your head wrapped around whenever you see certain errors and you get certain warnings or something that's telling you that it's undefined. Remember that that means something hasn't been initialized. It may be declared, but it hasn't been initialized. Null is similar to undefined in that it represents an unknown value. You got to know the difference here. When you see null, it means it's unknown. However, it is assigned to values that the programmer wishes to keep empty. So this is what we're saying. We're doing this on purpose. This is when you're assigning it to a variable that you want to keep empty. And that's why the output would be null. So let's look at an example. Let's say that we are still working for the zoo. We have objects created for the animals like so. We have the giraffe object. We have the keys, the values. Now, a new giraffe is coming to the zoo. We may want to initialize an object for the giraffe, but hold off on storing information in the weight property until the giraffe arrives. In this case, we could initialize the weight property like so. We make it null. Now, again, I always say that when you think like a developer, think about different use cases. When you're writing your functions, when your objects, this makes sense because when you think about it in the real world, the reason why you keep the weight null is because you haven't weighed the giraffe. It hasn't arrived yet. You don't know what the weight is. It may weigh one thing when it left its location, but it arrives to you at a different weight. It could lose weight, it could gain weight. So you keep this as null because you want to keep it null until you're ready to input the information you want to put there. So this is why you would use that null for that property like that on purpose. This way, our object is properly initialized, so we won't get any errors, anything like that. It gives us back a value. That's why it's a primitive data type. We get a data type, but it's like a placeholder so that we won't get any errors. And it says with all the information we will need, and we can update the weight property later when we have accurate information. So that makes sense. So we made it to the end of this particular chapter. Check your understanding. Now, again, we're bringing together all the different concepts, everything that you have learned up until this point. We're reinforcing it. Again, we're adding to what you've already learned. Okay, so that's the end of this video. Remember, the more you do, the more you improve. See you in the next chapter.